There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
Disappeared. All right, hey, you're listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. I'm your host, Craig Norris, joined by your co-host, Taylor Lidston, and special guest, Marty Clode.
Hey, how you going?
We're going good.
Good stuff.
The royal we. And I brought you in, Marty, because I want to deep dive into your scale modeling and miniature work and the kind of momentum you've got to potentially create something and start to release it to the world.
Sure.
So if you're at home listening along to us and you have any questions while we're doing the show, you can SMS us on 0488 11707. If you're in the digital world, we're also on the internet through edgeradio.org.au streaming live, as well as a video version of it on YouTube and Twitch. So you can join us on the chat in YouTube and Twitch just by searching Media Mothership. But we're also on the DAB. Which I don't feel
Everywhere.
I don't feel I ever promote the DAB effectively, the digital audio broadcasting.
Yeah. Never get
system.
the dab.
Yeah.
No. Or dab.
But we are on that as well. So today's topic, we're going to explore scale modeling. So, Marty, let's set it up by talking, I guess we'll start at the end and then we'll go backwards.
I like that. Yeah, like, what's his name? French director. Gaspar.
Yes, if we're...
irreversible. Irreversible.
Because I guess what we're setting up is the mystery to the resolve. So the most recent thing that has propelled you into some media fame was the Space Marine painting competition that Good Games organised.
Oh, yeah.
So let's start with this moment. So if you're watching, I'll bring up the image of it on the YouTube. Here we go. So tell me a bit about this competition. If I can find it, sorry.
I think it was about the fifth from sixth last post, I think.
Yes.
You probably see muzzle flash.
That wasn't it there. Here.
There we go.
Great.
That's
all right.
one.
So it's up there on the screen. What is the...
The one before it as well has got a lot more.
You can control it with your mouse.
Of course I can. Yeah. Let's have a look at this.
What is the... so this is Zeitgeist Studios. If you're interested in... the work, you can check it out on Zeitgeist Studios. So it's Zeitgeist_Studios. And this was a Space Marine Recon Scout Raptors chapter. Unpack it. So what is this figure? What is Warhammer 40,000? What is the miniature space? And what were you putting together with this figure?
Sure thing. It's a Space Marine, my first Space Marine I've ever painted. So I generally like military historical subjects, and it was an opportunity for me to sort of branch out and paint something different. And I have been sculpting primarily for the time I've been back into modelling, not so much painting. So painting something that I love, I just don't get the chance to do it because I sculpt in order to paint the things I sculpt. That's my mission, even if it takes a couple of years to do one figure or another, or it's really about I'm trying to have as much fun as I can in the hobby. So I've taken this figure. I've gotten
so this is a Warhammer 40k
it's a Warhammer,
figure, an existing
yep. So Warhammer
Space Marine.
32 millimeter, kind of high ish. It's probably a little bit bigger than that, but it's the firstborn Space Marine. All the stuff I know about now suddenly of fire hose myself with information, because I am not a gamer. I am not a gamer, or never have been. I think I got as far as fighting fantasy game books when I was in high school, like everyone else did. But I was fascinated by miniature figurines and little people. Really, all about little people.
Because it's interesting the moment we're in at now in terms of what's driving the mainstream model, miniature, scale environment. You've got Warhammer 40k. So Warhammer 40k and this miniature modeling gaming space wasn't one that you'd had a background in.
Nope.
But it's big, isn't it? You saw this ad in the local game store in Hobart, Good Games.
Good Games.
And they were promoting a competition for miniature painting.
Yep, local miniature painting comp, small, shop-based comp. So Good Games is a chain, I guess it's a franchise across Australia, I believe, just Australia. And this was just a local Hobart-based comp. Fairly informal, simple rules, couple of...
What were the rules?
The two rules were... the rules were you could change two things on the miniature, so you could swap out an arm or a head. So I kind of went, well, I don't really have any other Space Marine or 40k bits and pieces lying around. I'll just I'll sculpt a haircut on him. I'll redo his face. I'll make him look like me, actually. I'll do a bit of a self-portrait, and then I'll do a muzzle flash, and I'll add some molly straps on the, all his pouches, and I'll sculpt a little skull there, and I guess I probably added about 7 things but they're pretty flexible. It wasn't, wasn't hard and fast.
Because I guess the mechanics of it are to sculpt that face or the head onto it again. What was the A to Z of that?
A to Z, well, a little bit of carving back. So I was going to add some detail, which was pretty much in his upper nose bridge and forehead, a lot of forehead creases, and some veins popping out of the sides of both sides of his head. These temporal veins. And the sort of what do you call it? Island haircut, I'll call it. Pretty military-looking haircut, and. Yeah, I didn't really carve a lot off, more just sort of sanded back a bit of stuff and added some green stuff. It's such a tiny area to work on that green stuff, I just used it straight because it's quite sticky, and normally I mix it with milliput, another 2-part epoxy clay, which modelers will be familiar with. Maybe the general public has zero idea about, probably would guess that. But the plumbers might know about milliput. It's a plumbing originally a Welsh product, yeah.
And it is available locally. I mean, you don't need to go overseas to grab this stuff. It's
not really, no. You can probably buy it from the local model shop, but of course, we're living in a small town and supplies get low. I got to get some matte varnish. Oh, it's out. I got to get this, and a shop's not going to get a huge range of stuff, and it might be easier to live in Melbourne and as a modeler because you can sort of just go. You've got 17 stores. We have, I think, one. Dedicated kind of scale modelling. There's another one that's more towards car modelling, and then you've got the gaming kind of end of things, which are mainly gaming stuff, gaming figures and paints.
And I guess this
where I kind of contact those, where I have contact with them is in buying paints, buying brushes, buying equipment, and
because this brings us back to this more mainstream space where the Warhammer 40k incredibly successful. From what I know, again, I'm not a Warhammer 40k person, but we're talking miniature battles. You've got your armies of, kind of testosterone-induced, gun-blazing marine dudes, kind of science fiction, battling against assortment of...
Tyranids and...
Yes.
Yucky kind of...
So you kind of
looking things.
Threw yourself into it. What, as you were sculpting and trying to think, how do I take something which is very kind of off-the-shelf figure... for this competition, how do I tell a story? What's something unique I can do to this, which puts my fingerprints on it? How did you approach that?
I guess I took a step back from the whole kind of Warhammer thing, which I am not a part of anyway. I am back from it, and I looked at looked at kind of what Space Marines were. These juiced up, enhanced kind of human beings with power armor, and they're different chapters with different kind of logos, and I found the Raptors were as close to sort of the real world as I like, because I didn't really didn't want to have flashy what do they have purity seals and big kind of all the kind of classic ultramarine get up. I like the Raptors. I kind of got attracted to that. So I went, oh gee, there's some, they were called reasonable Marines. I think was a moniker. Like, there's just nothing kind of flashy about them. They're camo, they're ready for battle. They're, in the jungle. They're, they adapt their power armor to sort of fit in and whatever camo ice, kind of like, say, people in the Battle of the Bulge, soldiers in the Battle of the Bulge, with winter cam, whitewash the tanks. So maybe they whitewash their power armor, or they're in the desert, so they do So I've got this, and I did a little nod to the real world, to historical modelling by painting British desert DPM on over the top of what would have been the Raptors' kind of forest green armor, and it's chipped off in areas, and there's the Raptors logo kind of painted originally on the green, and they've kind of painted up to the edge there, and so I've got a taken the figure where I wanted it. I just wanted to wanted to do what I wanted to do with it. I didn't want to be dictated to. I wanted to sort of, within the rules of, I sort of realised that Warhammer is very, it's kind of like historical modelling, because there are, there's a history and there's codexes, and there's so much lore. And
I think Henry Cavill, a huge celebrity, Hollywood figures are huge fans of this. And,
Gundam, and, getting back to its place in the sort of modelling, Gundam.
The Japanese giant robots,
Bandai,
Gundam series.
Big mechas and stuff. And Warhammer are the kind of gateway drugs for a lot of young people. This is one of the biggest points I think that needs to be made. They're one of the largest sort of gateway drugs for people getting into modelling. They're not probably going to do it through, let's say, modelling the US and Lebanon in 1983 or something. It means nothing to them. That means more to me, having grown up in the Cold War and during that time as a Gen Xer.
Or a Spitfire at Woolies.
A Spitfire, hearing about World War II stories from grandparents. And
those aren't the gateways. And it's interesting,
no, they're
even
not anymore.
Like Big W, I noticed they've got a modelling section now with some Bandai Star Wars kits. Nice. And some one-piece model kits.
I didn't know that.
Right, the actual, I think there's some vehicle models and actual character models they've got from One Piece there. And your basic kind of modelling supply kit, your nippers.
Yep, nice one.
And there's no paint though, right? That's the really fascinating thing I saw, that no paint. All these kits are colour moulded so that you snap fit them together and you don't paint them.
That's the Bandai.
Mainly all the Bandai stuff.
Kind of recipe, isn't it, for their kits? So people can just do them out of the box and they snap together, right? The Star Wars line, right? They all snap together as well.
That's right.
Almost slide together, and
it's fascinating.
You don't need glue. I mean, I'll use it, but you don't need it.
I mean, there's a certain hierarchy, I guess, in terms of those snap kits. Have evolved. I mean, I only knew them previously from the 80s, where they were very crap.
Yeah, and they did snap. They were kind
of... that's right. And they had the big clips on them.
Together.
But it was fascinating looking at some of the new kits that Bandai have launched with huge properties like Star Wars. And
just use of slide molding technology and, this sort of thing.
Obviously, the technology of being able to use, I am going to say the word CAD. I've never used a CAD machine or that geometry stuff, but obviously that level of being able to create the architecture of a model on the computer first and then produce it. But your approach is very old school, right? You're not sitting there.
It is very old school.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I don't really think about that, but that's a good observation, yeah.
And it still has a kind of connection and conversation in the mainstream. So the Good Games competition is fun because there you are with the skills you've developed with very niche topics. What was the reception like to this piece in the competition? Did they get it? Did anyone get it? I mean, the level of storytelling or detailing.
I like honesty in criticism, and I did have one guy who I said, "Tell me, be brutal," and he found the one fault on it, which I do believe there is, which I could point out as well. And I think I was talking about the kind of general subject of non-metal metal and getting it right. And there was a time limit. I painted this in I think I started 10 days before the comp ended.
So there were two rules. One was you could only replace 2 parts of the model.
Changed 2 things, but it wasn't hard and fast. It wasn't like a golden demon or anything. I mean, I think a lot of the modelers, a lot of the painters were pretty, maybe pretty flexible in their approach too.
But you had a time limit, and that's right. You needed to take photos of it, didn't you? To show
no, I didn't need to take photos. No, it was a in-person comp. So
right.
bring the mini in. Have it
really?
judged. So yeah, so there was a kind of objective. If you can, is judging ever objective? I don't know. There was a panel of people who kind of not connected to. I think it was as far just disconnected from the kind of painting, the people in it as much as possible. Some people couldn't enter it because of that, I think. And yeah, they deliberated, and I think there was quite a bit of difficulty choosing, places, winners, and winners. It's a funny word to use. I mean, because I think judging is very objective, and you don't know what's in the mind of the judge. You can't read minds. You don't know what they've got in mind. I think the style I came at it with is very much a photographic style. It looks better in a photo than it does. It's not a tabletop miniature. It's on a big, wooden plinth with a scenic base with sort of desert environment. So that's another thing that basing and environment are very much as a part of the kind of figure itself as the figure. It's not just I'm whacking them on a little round.
Because the base is fantastic.
I don't get that. I don't. Yeah, for me,
you've got a bit of groundwork.
The groundwork is part of a figure. You don't float around in the air. You walk on the earth. We're earthlings.
And I guess the story that it tells is so much more powerful.
We leave footprints when we walk, and mud catches us, and snow lands on us, and clothes get water stains, and that's part of the story, telling the story. So that was what I was trying to do with the figure, is as much have it tell a story as just represent a character in a kind of imaginary world.
Because what is he standing on?
He's walking across very rocky, kind of it's fiery kind of looking planet. Very. So
you
hot,
found small
really
pebbles.
Hot. No. I just sculpted the whole thing in milliput again. Just using one of these kind of using press molding. So using different things to sort of create textures. There's ways to sort of make things look really lifelike without, for example, using what's the stuff, blue stuff, kind of thermoplastic, so you can mold rocks and then get the impression of the rock, and then shove some, epoxy putty in, and then
you've got your real rock.
You've got a little scenic base. Yeah,
you've also got like wheat cheeks there. How did you create?
There's about 5 different plants, so 5 different.
How did you do that?
They're just different things I've collected along the way.
You'll be walking on the side of the road, and you'll see.
On the side of the road, yeah. They're often weeds.
Perfect.
Some of them are very fine, and there are different ones that grow all over the world, very similar looking things, and you go, oh yeah, that's something I've collected along the way and put in a Tupperware container. And
I love the idea of seeing you on the side of the road, bending over and forensically gathering.
People will see it from time to time, yeah.
So how do you and you just use some kind of coat of paint over the top of it to preserve it, or if you're using like real organic things?
I think one of them may have been treated with glycerin, which is a way of preserving plants. When you first chop something, you can kind of put it in a 50-50 glycerin mix, and it basically imbues itself it goes up into the veins of we call it osmotically.
Yes.
Osmotically sucks itself up into the plant, and then becomes kind of plasticized. It's just full of like glycerin, really, and you can dye the glycerin and color it, keep it colored, and but it's kind of fatty. It makes it a little oily. It's strange to use. So I don't know if I've done that with any of those. Don't think I have. I think I've pretty much just primed them, zenithally primed the whole thing, which is we can talk about. Zenithal priming, nadiral highlighting. I don't know.
So at one level,
that's been heavily primed in a nice big thick coat of coat of Mr. Surfacer Black, really good, 1500 I think. So it's got a very fine patina. It's not, it's great to paint on. It's pretty much bites into the plastic, so it's an acrylic lacquer.
Because it's interesting. We're talking, I think, at two moments here. One is that barrier, the gateway drug, as you were talking about. So this is the Warhammer space, the Gundam model space. It's very open. It's in your big commercial stores like Big W these days. But also there's a huge learning curve once you want to develop a kind of vocabulary around creating effective models that are going to tell a story. The conversations around this piece, did you talk to some of the other competitors or people that were there during the day about, like they were saying, how did you do that? That conversation?
No, not really. It was a case of there's a mini comp on, drop off the mini, wait to hear back on social media. Who's the winner?
I mean, you would have got some nice replies though. Like
there were
well
some,
done,
there was some really nice. There was some really friendly kind of banter between us, and congratulations between sort of winners and people who placed, I guess. So
you came
nice.
Second.
I came second. Yeah. It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, for a space again, which is a stretch from your normal material.
I'm a noob. I'm an outsider. They looked at me funny. I was asking them about lore, and they're like, "Who is this guy?"
Because everyone else in the competition was very much part of that fandom. Were there any other people similar to yourself who?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware of it. I'm pretty much sure I was the only kind of 40K involved or adjacent, painter.
Because they're not. Yeah.
I have to say, I still don't get it. So, like,
what do you mean?
Does it, like, as part of a competition, do they give you something to work with and then you build on top of it, or do you, like, because you said that you sculpted the head?
Yeah.
Did it already come with the head and you took the head off and then sculpted another one to go in there, sort of thing?
No. So we got blind box kind of kits. So a blind box is where I think that they had about 30 minis, maybe. I think there's 12 or so, 15 in each. And they just give you, a blind box and you open it. And you've got plastic Space Marine, the parts on a sprue. There's everything there. The helmeted head, base. The head everything sort of fits very well. It's there are plugs as well, I think, for the arms, and it does actually snap together. That's right.
So then you can like mix and match those.
Yeah, you can put another head on. And people, I guess players, painters do that and adapt figures and change an arm and put it in a different position, or swap an arm and add a different weapon. And I kept the figure pretty much in the basic pose. So he's blasting a bolt gun on full auto, I guess. So I didn't sort of change the figure. It looks basically like the same. The form's still there, everything. I think I took off a purity seal, added some mole straps, these kind of attachment straps on his holster, and didn't really alter it much, as much as other painters, but and then the green stuff work on the face. And
But the other thing that's striking is how small the scale is that this is in terms of the amount of detail. You're got various magnifying lenses you're using. I mean, if someone was to walk into you as you were doing this, they'd see you crouched over a table with various levels of microscope or magnifying glass.
What are they called? Optivisors, many different types over the years, and they're all...
Like you'd imagine like primitive. A watch repairist has.
Yeah, doctors, medical staff and dentists use ones that have head-up displays and then all sorts of things. I don't know. I've got just your, sort of standard entry level. I'm sure they're not that, optically well designed. I think the better ones are ones with just a single piece.
Yes.
They kind of bubble out, so they're convex on the front. So you have different lenses you can pop in, 1.5 times magnification, 2.5, 3.5. Usually work at it. I think 3.5 is sufficient to sort of be able to see well. And I wear them over reading glasses, so there's no way I could even with reading glasses sculpt. Let's look at the hair texture here. This is or the skull on the Aquila.
So this photo there that you have is an early version of what you were starting with.
Yeah,
this
is a garish red plastic I think he was supposed to be a blood angel. So they've done that kind of Bandai thing, moulding it in the colour. So I mean, players might play with it as a little red toy. But look at the detail. There's individual teeth. It's really amazing, the actual quality of the casting itself.
And of course, the photo we're looking at is, you can see the scale by the thumb. I imagine that's your thumb that's resting
my
against
thumbnail.
Oh my god!
So
okay,
It's a
right.
thumbnail. It's like the side of Earth. It's like horizon curve there.
And we can see your fingerprint on the other side of it. So it shows that, again, it's a very, very tiny figure.
And that's pushing my mobile phone camera to the limit. It's pretty difficult to get good images. Gosh, you probably have to take like 30 to get one good one, and I don't know what just happened there.
So again, there is that entry point where you don't need any kit really, apart from something to cut the sprues with. But then if you want to take it further to, again, I guess, tell that story beyond it being just a mass-produced object, to really lend it that...
Turn it into a bit of art, or a bit of, miniature. I don't know, art's a difficult word. Artisanship might be a better way to put it.
Where do you see the conflict around art and miniature modelling, or...
I think it's the value and the object of the individual object. So I'll look at that Space Marine and okay, what can I do with this? How far can I push this to? What's the limit I can push this to with detail, with and as an indulgence in it, I wanted to try everything on this Space Marine and not have to do another 6 Space Marines. I just sort of it was a foray into something different, and
is it a pathway that anyone can pursue to make money from? Are there...
Oh, of course it is, yeah. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to... it is very much so. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's people who it's, possibly almost make a living off it. If you look at some of the more successful YouTubers...
and this is specifically
if
within the
you were
Warhammer
talking about the sort of
40K
Warhammer
space,
stuff, yeah, some of your Don Serratos on Instagram, you've got a lot of people who... They're cross-platform, so they've got Patreons, but they've got videos up on Instagram, they've got YouTube content.
Has this
Arkel Heraldes,
work you've done...
for example, he's big on YouTube. I think, a lot of these top painters, and was Eric Swinson also, kind of fantasy or Warhammer painter. Great, long-form sort of videos of him painting and his technique and discussing it, and, you really get to sort of almost get inside his head and really see, what processes are going on. And
as an entry point, it's fantastic the journey that can take you on. I mean, going from just a gamer for Warhammer, suddenly, if you found yourself being thrown into wanting to create nicer looking figures, suddenly there you're engaging with questions of anatomy, of pigmentation, of using clay work. Has this figure on your own Instagram feed drawn a new audience into your work? Have you noticed any people?
Let's have a look how many likes does it have. Should we mention how many likes it's got? Yeah.
It's more than my episode of the Mothership.
It's got two likes. All right, that's fine. It's not about that for me. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. It's almost an added extra. I should probably post that. It looks pretty good. I should maybe share it around.
It is challenging, though, building that audience. I mean, the role of social media, one of the conversations we had leading up to this was the explosion in podcasting around scale modeling. And you've created a fantastic list on Spotify, which I'll see if I can put in the show notes.
Yeah, if you can share that.
Because, it has some really interesting episodes, including one on social media, where they talk about the role of social media in gaming, in scale modeling and miniature work, how it's really helped balloon the barriers of entry, again, for those people that are kind of knowledgeable in this space or getting answers to problems they're facing. It can be difficult in a local environment like Hobart, where there's not many other people. And where there are people, it's a rather solitary pursuit where you don't know unless a competition like the one in Good Games pops up, where suddenly you're aware of people modeling. So it can be only through social media that many people first reach out and find others that share this interest.
Very much so. I think that is the community that when people talk about the modelling community or the painting community, they're often talking now instead of a local group of people who they meet up with, which once was probably, was the only means of meeting other modelers and model clubs back in the 1980s and 90s when I first got into it. Social media has democratized it. It's allowed people to sort of, through modelers and painters putting up content, tips and tricks, and just sharing it and sort of not being gatekeepers as much as they were. I think when I got into model making, you had, I guess they were sort of the figureheads of the hobby. Shepard Payne, Francois Verlinden.
Yep.
They were the big names, and they had a style, and you wanted to emulate it. It was sort of, that was all there really was, but it was a lot. It was amazing, and they produced books that we would pour. Absolutely.
You find one in the local library,
read it 100
maybe.
times, and I
find
remember
fine
having
scale modeler kind of
fine scale modelling magazines. Even looking at Jane's Defence Weeklies, looking at kind of new military tech, and frothing over that, and whatever we could kind of get our hands on. I guess now we've just absolutely spoiled. It is like, I think a lot of people say it is a golden age. I would agree. I think it is a golden age for modelling and miniature art, and it's been, like I say, it's been democratised. I think just seeing the kind of wealth of, every week I probably follow another 30 to 50 accounts from a lot of mainly fantasy painters. It seems to be a huge amount of people who are painting busts and not traditional kind of Warhammer
like
stuff.
Conan.
A lot of this more popular fantasy, a lot of the fantasy figure comps are not so much dominated by Warhammer anymore, but by busts and 75mm figures and more sort of academic posed figures, and
well, I was going to ask,
that sort of are getting more, I think, closer to fine art. So where people think of it's either military or Warhammer or fantasy, it's not just like that. There's massive kind of nexus between the two. There's
because there are artists who have dabbled in this space. I know there's one work that the Adelaide Art Gallery has, which is amazing. I think it's two British artists who basically created a diorama with, I think it's 1/48 scale figures of the Germans in hell. Nazis in
we're
hell.
talking about the Chapman brothers, right?
Yeah, the Chapman brothers.
Chapman, yep.
Yeah,
okay.
and they just grabbed these pre-produced kits and then they've resculpted them.
They were, I think,
Chapman brothers. Yeah, it's an amazing piece. It's like them in hell.
Figures. I think hell was destroyed in a fire. I think two of the actual things were destroyed in a fire. They rebuilt another one, but I think the point of it wasn't the workmanship of the figures. It was the whole kind of
the story
scene. It's a Hieronymus Bosch hell portrait. There was I think Ronald McDonald crucified.
That's right. There's all this McDonald's, there's
Nazis torturing Nazis.
Grimace is there. Half of them are skeletons.
Yeah. It's a clownish hellscape. It's kind of like a indictment of modern consumer society. It's quite punk, It's quite
and on that spectrum,
it's sold for $7 million.
Sold for $7 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's in an art gallery. Again, I was surprised to see it at the Adelaide Art Gallery, and it's fantastic. They have two of their diorama pieces. One where you can see Hitler painting on the hill as he's looking out across this Auschwitz-like Hieronymus Bosch landscape of these German soldiers coming in from a train. It's, at one level, incredibly ghoulish and powerful in storytelling, but with an interest in scale modelling, also incredibly exciting in terms of the potential there, that you're not simply creating something in terms of how necessarily authentic it is, but letting your imagination go wild and what story can I tell from this canvas?
And I think it's drawing in the public in a way that traditional model making often isn't able to do, unless you're sort of connected to it or know someone, have a family member or a friend who's, then they might go to a show, see your work, or you'll go together and look at some models at Melbourne Model Expo or, one of the other sort of comps around, but you're not going to so much see that controversial. I mean, that to me, I guess that's a space that exists and isn't really the model making space. It's using model making to make art. But people will look at it and go, oh gosh, those are models, those are plastic models. They recognise the sort of components that make it up, or if they're toy figures or plastic Tamiya figures or something. It's sort of it makes it like familiar. We kind of grew up with these.
Because I guess even if you talk with any
subverting it to a point that
Yeah. Because there's a whole, kind of engagement with modeling that's in so many movies. Certainly movies from the 70s, 80s, 90s, where you'd have, your Imperial Star Destroyer from Star Wars basically cobbled together from various Tamiya kits. And part of it's kind of unique, but it creates something which isn't the German Panzer tank, but there are bits and pieces of that kit and other kits. It does show, that kit bashing is a kind of exciting way to take these mainstream objects and make them, in a very punk way, something quite different.
Yeah, but I think it's getting back to the Chapman brothers. So I'm not sure if you're aware of AK Interactive. They did a book a few years ago called Condemnation, I think it was called. Condemnation. And it went down like a lead balloon due to the marketing campaign, the way they sort of handled it. And I think they were wanting to sort of, and they did in almost every instance, produce some really thought-provoking, just shoving the truth in people's face about the reality of war and poverty. And there's a little African kid standing on a mountain of rubbish bags, multicoloured, green and black rubbish bags and seagulls, and I'm not sure what the caption was on it, but it's got this sort of very poignant, very strong social messaging, and sort of saying, why don't we use modelling to sort of make more of a statement about, excuse me, all the crap going on in the world, all the shit that's going down. Why don't we actually, why is war? Why are we having why are we making it look like a lark, like a holiday, like it's let's show the horror of it.
Interesting.
Instead, why can't we do that with modelling?
Because here we have AK Interactive, mostly known, I guess, for their various paints and weathering, and kind of things you can add to models. And they have done a number of magazine issues, and most of those would be standard. Here's your Star Wars model kits that have been kind of appropriated in some way, but the politics of this, would have been really controversial in a community which some of it which would define it purely as we're about taking history things.
Yeah, I think it was about taste. How they approached it. The one, I better give it context, okay? For listeners, of course, we know about it, but the book had one article that was about how to build a gas chamber, to represent a diorama of Auschwitz, and I think it was in a little ad on YouTube, and that featured in it, and it went down pretty badly, and it said, no, you've done it all wrong, terrible, bad taste. But a lot of the content, I think the intention was right. They wanted to sort of broach these taboo topics and have them represented in models, but they just went about it the wrong way. And they were a big company, and there was, I think, smarter minds didn't prevail in that case.
And I guess
but they also admitted their mistake too. So it's they're human beings. They made a mistake and have righted it and kind of carried on, and they're a huge contributor sort of to the accessibility of modelling. By producing everything under the sun, books on painting Gundam mecha, weathering mecha, to making a die-cast model look like I think it was AK, one of the, Vallejo or AK, one of the big kind of Spanish school model, producers, manufacturers.
And I want to get back, if we can, to the busts you were talking about, and how that you've noticed as you've been looking through the socials and various information sources for modelling, that there's a lot of bust work that's happening, because you yourself have been a creator of bust figures. The one you were showing me before the show, that you've been setting the Ukrainian soldier. Take us through this a bit, this story behind this figure.
busts.
It's
Sure.
not currently on your Instagram page?
There is. It is. Yep. It might be. Let's have a look.
Because here we have, and again, I guess engaging with that idea of how you could possibly tell stories, here we have a current kind of political issue, real geopolitical concerns going on, and you're engaging with it through modelling.
Yeah, it's. I think something that could be a little bit of a sensitive subject. Modelling a war that's going on right now. I kind of treaded carefully. I just wanted to represent the sort of struggle and.
So we have what you've been sculpting
individual.
is a bust of a figure,
Yeah,
a soldier
from 2022. I guess the start of the war in Ukraine, and he's sort of pretty war weary. I've tried to tell a story with this bust, like really capture a lot of emotion in his face, and you have that sort of, well, he's a young guy, but he looks like he's aged about 10 years. So here's another one of his face. Side on. So it's very much the individual experience, with figures. It's
the
about
vein on the side of the head.
you see the face, you see the life, the expression. In that scale, it's 1/6 scale, so it's quite large. I normally, some of the other busts I've been working on, 1/10 is often the sort of, it seems like the industry standard, like really popular scale. It's just a good size. Excuse me. This other one here, I think this is actually about 1/12. So it's about half the scale. I mean, there's no set scale for busts. It's just when you sort of look at the history of them, I often see classical composers, Mozart, Wagner, etc., and they're big 1/4 scale, 1/3 to 1/4 scale. It's heading towards sort of being a statue almost then, and very, you can really get detail in no need for optimizers. You're using your hands almost.
But you mentioned, this piece and the conversation that you're having with it, the story that it's telling. Did it? There are moments where, I mean, even here in Hobart, they'll be visiting people from Ukraine. They were mentioning there was a Ukrainian soldier that came to Hobart recently.
Ukrainian officer. So he was a major, and I believe he might have been decorated in the Battle of Kherson.
Right.
And I presented him, gifted him with some artwork that I've made so I also do painting, not as often as I'd like to, but this was a piece that I did in 2022 of a female Ukrainian soldier.
Right.
From a photograph. Just capturing, the amount of animals that have been displaced too, cats and dogs in trenches, and
So this was a piece
animal companions for.
You created. How did he react when you gave him this
He's
piece?
incredibly touched, incredibly moved, and he wanted me to sign it and wrote a little message on the back, and it was very, very special, very nice.
I mean, for me, that's an interesting contrast to those experiences where you do bring this hobby into the public. On one hand, with the Warhammer figure, a conventional competition, and then those moments where there's someone presenting and talking about the experience, and you can also bring that art into a conversation with them to get them to recognise.
To demonstrate something. I mean, I guess it's a show of appreciation for what they're doing, and what is a kind of globally linked war. We're all affected by it now. It's changed our lives like COVID did and the lockdowns did. This is, it's made massive kind of ripples through our lives now, and I guess it's my sort of way of saying thank you. And he was, to see his reaction was, this is a really hard guy. He's seen his men die. He's seen, men under him die, and good young men, lose their lives fighting for what anyone would, fighting for their own existence. It was really special for me, just to see the emotion in his face, and to see how much it touched, and that
Wonderful.
he felt, how much sort of support there was out there, not just in his own country, but in other countries. And
it is interesting how these objects can sometimes transcend words.
Yeah.
Where it's very difficult to put into words some aspect of it. And again, maybe scale modeling, miniature work, art provides a really important communication function that sometimes we don't recognize the impact of music. So we've only got about 5 minutes left, and it is a shame because we did want to get around to talking about why modelers are brought to certain topics. Yes, I'll get the stream going again. Thank you. That's why we've got a second monitor with my stream. I feel it's actually worked now. Back, thank you for those callers letting us know.
Have we got any questions or comments or?
We do have a comment from
any super chats?
It's electric.
Be nice.
It's just a picture.
No.
And stop streaming again.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we kind of are getting. I'm going to open it again.
Okay.
For people that are listening along and the audio stream. Someone's actually messaging saying, "Get out the stream." But yeah, it is a shame because I did want to talk about why modelers are drawn to certain topics.
Sure, we need another 2 hours.
And we do. So we might say if people want to find out more, though, where can they go?
Right, I'm the quiet modeler. I'm very, I'm not that prolific. I work on slowly away, chip at things, but I have a Instagram page, which is a primary kind of point of contact for me and way to sort of look at my works in progress. It's very much sneak peeks. There's a lot of works in progress. So a few finished pieces, but a lot of my sculpture, some drawing, recently finished painted figures, close-ups of some of the scratch building, and that's at Zeitgeist_Studios. So that's ZEITGEIST, like the German word, which means spirit of our time, in case you're wondering. And that's another story too. Zeitgeist_Studios.
Yes.
Just before we finish.
It would be studio, but someone else took that. And I draw and paint, so I do have studios, so it's all right. It is fitting.
Just before we finish, how did you get the muzzle flash to look like that? Is there like a little LED in there or something? Because it looks like it's lit up.
Paint.
Really?
Wow.
That's purely
There's no light. I've used no filters on those images too. So that's a base of white paint. Let's go right back to it. Okay, I've drilled out the barrel. I've stretched out a bit of clear plastic sprue over a candle. I have then sculpted in green stuff 3 muzzle flashes, so sort of like a spiky, almost like a pineapple. Basically sculpted a little pineapple, and then another 2 little pineapples on these little clear plastic rods, and then I've sculpted a slug. So
yes, you can see
at
the
the
bullet.
end you can see the slug, right? And then I've airbrushed the slug and the flashes white, and then I've dry brushed back against them in a darker and a kind of red, and then I've used, I've gone in there, I've airbrushed a little bit of fluorescent orange and fluorescent yellow, and there's a few washes, and and then the round I've kind of painted in a metal style again. So there's quite a bit. I did that in one day. I did it in the morning. It was due in. So this is an idea of how. Yeah. I actually did that I think I did it within about 8 hours. It was Wow. No, tell a lie. I sculpted the flashes the night before, painted it, and sort of set it all up in those. Yeah.
The effect is remarkable, and given the time pressures you're under, it's well worth having a look at. So do check out Zeitgeist Studios on Instagram. I'll make sure there are notes, links to that in the show notes. Marty, thanks so much for coming in. I'm looking forward to having you in more to finish. We've only asked you one question, I think.
I have not even answered all the questions. I mean, there's so many things we could go back to for sure. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Taylor.
This has been Media Mothership. Keep listening, though. Coming up next, we'll have K-Pop Unlimited.